Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports on Converge Media. Charles and Bel joining you here. As always, we've had some really, some packed weeks last few weeks, especially with the NHL trade deadline, NFL free agency kicking off, the MLB sort of weird free agency starting because of the lockout ending, rather.
Yeah.
But I feel like this week we kind of hit back to a normal sort of whatever normal that we can get in Seattle sports. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Just kind of general updates on some of the games that were played this week.
Yeah,
So
not a lot of big juicy
that's okay.
rumors or anything. Yeah, that's okay. I mean, it's good to not have to deal with it all the time. So with that being said, we'll jump right into our Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah. So we do have just a couple of notes here in regards to the Seahawks. Pete Carroll apparently did make a attempt to keep Russell Wilson. He did fight for him to stay in Seattle, but once he realized that it wasn't meaningful anymore to stick with that mindset, he moved on from that. And of course, we know what happened after that. So, I mean, I don't know that I have very many thoughts on this. Of course, some people say that you could tell that there wasn't such a connection towards the end there. So, any thoughts from you?
I mean, if he's a smart man, it would make sense for him to fight for his quarterback,
yeah.
right? Especially a guy that is established and a franchise guy. But I mean, just the comments that I think we talked about it in the weeks past, right?
Mhm.
With what was especially since the trade, this idea of after every season declaring, going into like where we're at right now, heading into the draft, we need to run the ball more. We need to run the ball more. And obviously, if Russell feels a different way, I mean, it makes sense. It would make sense that he's like, hey, I'm gonna tell you I want you to stay, but if you leave, it's not the end of my world, because he's still gonna have a coaching job, obviously, like he is now. I'm sure you've got some sort of shorter version of a leash. I'm sure it's like, hey, because of the history you have and because what you've done for this franchise, we're gonna let you figure this out. But if you're not able to figure that out in these next few years, or by the time your contract hits its end, I mean, I think it's safe to say, hey, happy retirement. Because I don't think he goes anywhere else after his contract ends.
Okay.
He's what? How old is? I don't remember off the top of my head how old he is. But as far as I remember, his contract ends in 25 age. He's 70. I mean, so do you see him playing? He's already like the oldest coach in the NFL. So I don't think he goes anywhere after this. So I feel like he's got a short leash, but also like I understand if he fought to keep him, but I don't think he was like Russell, please, I need you. He's like, oh, we want you around here, this and that. But it's not like I think he like put it all on the table,
And do you think he still like stuck to his guns then, as far as the coaching, the position that he was taking on the coaching about running the ball?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. In other news, he is also involving Geno Smith in the quarterback competition. So head coach Pete Carroll says the team wants to keep Geno Smith and have him involved in that starting role competition for the starting role. So what that would look like right now is Drew Lock and Geno Smith. And if things go Chuck's way in the draft, maybe Malik Willis.
Yeah. I mean, I would get wanting to have Geno because he's been in the system, right? And he knows the franchise and is familiar with the personnel and all that. And it could be his best bet to start, right? Because Drew Lock, I mean, he's still relatively young. He's like, what, 24, 25? So it's not horrible, right?
Yeah.
And I think you have those two battle it out if you're going to stick with that route. I don't think you're trading for anyone. I don't really see it.
No.
But also I'm not 100% sure about if the team's going to draft anybody because I've seen conflicting reports. I've seen that the team, I know that there have been Seattle personnel at different quarterback pro days. Like today's someone from Seattle was at UNC's pro day for Sam Howell. But I don't know if Seattle's in love with any of these guys necessarily. I've seen conflicting reports. So, I mean, if we're sticking at it, I know DK Metcalf defended Drew Lock. He was like, oh, that's the guy, and he said, enough with the Drew Lock slander.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But, I think having Geno back at least on the roster gives you a safe option, as safe as you can get, right?
Yeah.
With somebody who's familiar with the system and already knows, who we're looking at. But obviously, compared to what we've had, it makes your offense a lot less dangerous.
Yeah. And also last week, Bobby Wagner had a visit with the LA Rams, who expressed interest in having him maybe sign with the team. Was going to wait until a little later here, but I'll just mention it now. They opted to, they will not be pursuing him anymore because Wagner is seeking a 1-year, $11 million deal, but the Rams do not want to meet that asking price. So, why do you think the reasoning for the Rams is? I mean, Wagner is a seasoned veteran, but in my opinion, I think he's worth that 1 year, $11 million.
Well, because of how their cap is totally destroyed. You know, they already have, you know, Aaron Donald, you give Matthew Stafford a big extension, last week or the other week?
Right.
You just signed Allen Robinson to a 3-year, like $45 million deal. They're already pretty strapped. I don't know if they're going to be able to bring back Odell Beckham Jr. like they've tried to express that they want to. They traded Robert Woods, which I get. You've got Cooper Kupp too. I mean, he's going to want money too.
Yes.
You know, so they're already in their position. So they're probably like, hey, we want you.
But we're not.
Here's the $3 we have. Can you come and join us?
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's for the best. You know, no Bobby Wagner in LA, please. Oh, if it was at the other LA team, the Chargers, I don't think they need a linebacker. The Chargers, I'm okay with the Chargers anyway. But that's probably it. I think they're just strapped, and they're like, you want this, we can give you much less, and we'd like you to join, but we cannot meet your spot.
Hoping that he'd join just because they might be a contending team.
And knowing that Bobby is his own agent, you know, they might try to pull a fast one on him or something, but he sees his worth, you know.
Good for him. On March 24th, the Seahawks signed a corner that would be Justin Coleman to a 1-year deal. This is his second stint with Seattle. He spent the 2017-2018 season with the Hawks and is excited for homecoming.
Yeah, I think this makes I think might close the door on any hope for a Kevin King signing.
Definitely.
Coleman's a good pickup. He was a guy that really hadn't done much before he came to Seattle. I know he was spent some time with the Patriots before coming here and got a big payday when he left Seattle when he went and joined Detroit. I think it's a solid pickup. He was a guy that really showed out in the slot corner role, had 2 pick sixes, I think, in the 2018 season, one of them jumping into the Salvation Army bucket down at Jerry's World in Dallas when they beat Dallas. I think it's a good pickup, but it's interesting to see now how you've molded your cornerbacks. You're going to have Trey Brown. I love Trey Brown. You know, let's get him healthy. But you got Artie Burns and Justin Coleman. You kind of got like it's DJ Reed might have like opened Pete Carroll's eyes to shorter cornerbacks.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you keep Trey Brown in the system. Good. The guy that already showed out a bit, but you know, having Artie Burns, who's like 5. He's not that tall. You're hoping on skill on these guys, and they have skill, you know, and familiarity. So I'm interested to see, because unless I miss, Sidney Jones too. Sidney Jones. So I think they'll have some depth there. And if you want to, I mean, in a league that is really passing heavy, and especially you're playing the AFC West, right? The Chiefs, the Raiders, the Broncos, and your former quarterback, and help me out here, I'm missing somebody. The Chargers, especially. You're going to play a division that's really pass heavy, and your own division, Jimmy Garoppolo, you know, the Rams, right? You're playing the Rams. When you build a roster, you're building to compete against your division. They're not really good at building to compete against Aaron Donald, as you can see.
I don't think anybody is.
No, to be fair, yeah. But you're going to be playing the Rams, who are going to want to pass the ball, right? The Cardinals with Kyler Murray. You're going to want to pass the ball. I don't speak on San Francisco as much because Jimmy Garoppolo is Jimmy Garoppolo.
Who is maybe not even going to be their quarterback next season.
I saw something today, too, that said that I guess John Lynch was like, he's too talented of a player. So, hey, keep him there, sure. But so I think it's a good signing, but I'm intrigued to see how the depth chart sorts itself out, right? Who you're going to be your left and your right corners, who's going to fit in that slot, because you already had guys in the secondary that were competing to be your slot with Ugo Amadi, Marquise Blair. So what, do they just become backup safeties? Do you use those guys in other nickel packages? It's good. It's one of these good problems to have, I guess, when you got all this talent and you got to figure out how to use it.
Yeah. and figure out where to use them. And hopefully they figure out how to do that. But going back to some Russell Wilson news as well, KJ Wright did speak on that, and he said that he wasn't surprised, and you could tell that he and Pete Carroll weren't seeing eye to eye anymore. So if outside sources were also seeing that, then
former guys that were with the team for a long time, I'm sure they know a lot more than they'll say, but it makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Pete Carroll also spoke on DK Metcalf, states that they will do whatever it takes to extend his contract. So that's good news. We don't want to see him go anywhere. And DK, with the loss of Russell Wilson and Bobby Wagner, he understands the role that he needs to take now as a leader, and it sounds like he's up for the challenge.
I'm intrigued by this because I've seen, like, especially after like the Green Bay thing where he was ejected in that game. It's like, oh, diva receiver, typical receivers are, divas, all that kind of thing. I think you can kind of tell with the trade of Russell Wilson and the release of Bobby Wagner, it might be sobered him up a little bit. Not to say he wasn't, but you kind of a wake up call, and it's like, hey, someone's got to fill the leadership role. Is it going to be a Drew Lock? Probably not. Who else on that offense is going to take that role? Chris Carson doesn't seem like a guy that's outspoken. There's not really anybody that I can see that would take that role. So I guess it makes sense, right? Someone's got to step up and be that voice. On the defensive side of the ball, Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, you got some candidates there, but on the offense, tell me who's taking that role?
Yeah.
So it'll also be interesting. I know he didn't mention it, but who's going to wear the captaincy on the offensive side of the ball?
I think that would be him, honestly.
I don't doubt it. You know, so I think it's really cool because I know there are people, oh, he's a diva, he needs to be out. I think that's horse. That's a bunch of baloney.
And going off of that, I don't know if you did watch the interview that he had with Taylor Rooks, where he mentioned that he was going through some mental health things last season. And I think I recently saw a tweet where he said that therapy shouldn't be received in a negative way, or something like that. So it sounds like he's working through some things, and if that helps him on the field, then great. So of course we don't know what he could have been going through mentally last season, but yeah, I think he's ready to take on that leadership role. So it'll be exciting to see him do that. That's about it for our Seahawks related news here, but we do have league related news. Al Michaels will be joining Amazon's Thursday Night Football crew. He is leaving NBC and again joining the Amazon TNF crew on a huge $75 million deal. Crazy.
Give me that broadcast money.
Yeah,
$75 million.
That's a bag.
That's insane.
That's a good bag right there.
That is insane. Speaking of good bags.
Yes. On the 23rd, KC traded Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins, a 5-year, $120 million deal. That made Tyreek, I believe, the highest paying wide receiver.
It's got to be pretty close.
Yeah, because I think Devontae held that for the week that he was traded. And then Tyreek came and took that title from him. They also signed Armstead to a 5-year, $87.5 million contract. So Miami is gearing up for a run here.
Yeah, Tyreek is the highest paid, $30 million a year. God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then this, it kind of ties into Seattle, right? Because everyone's like, oh, Devontae Adams got traded. Tyreek Hill got traded. Oh, is DK going to get traded next? And Bell's poked me about it.
I am pitching DK to Green Bay.
You can pitch yourself off the studio. No. So I know and also an interesting comment was made, I don't know where they're at right now, but John Schneider and Pete Carroll are, they're with a bunch of other general managers, and someone asked Schneider about the wide receiver market and all that. And he said he didn't really sound too committal on giving him a big extension. So that like you add that and you add what we just talked about with the leadership role. I think he wants, I'm pretty sure he wants to be here. Okay. But, also just like in anything else, if you're going to be somewhere, you want to be compensated fairly. Right. So I wonder how that situation plays out. I know Pete Carroll said they want to get him extended. But I'm interested to see where the final numbers add up and or how that situation plays itself out. Because that's, I love Tyler Lockett, but this is your guy that, for the future and beyond, unless Noah Fant, I like Noah Fant, but, with the current guys we have, and not necessarily the newer pickups. He's kind of your face,
Yes.
right? So I would keep him happy as opposed to other players who are recently departed.
I agree. Unfortunately, it doesn't always play out that way because Green Bay desperately wanted to keep Devontae, and we saw how that turned out. So hopefully they are able to secure Metcalf on that extension. We don't, again, him trying to take that leader role and probably being captain, we don't want to see somebody else, a face that everybody here loves, leave. So hopefully that does happen for him. On the 24th, Deshaun Watson was cleared of criminal charges. The second grand jury declined to indict him on an outstanding complaint. And I believe this was a second complaint, right? Yeah. And so no indictment on that. I'm sure we'll hear more about Deshaun Watson in the weeks to follow. On March 28th, the Lions will be featured on, or it was announced that the Lions would be featured on NFL Hard Knocks. Detroit is also hosting the 2024 NFL Draft. The NFL announced that Detroit was chosen over Green Bay and Washington, D.C. The NFL also created a new diversity committee to review its hiring policies in light of ongoing criticism. So a response to the lawsuit, it sounds like?
I'm sure it is. I'm sure that was because the league has always had its stopgaps. It was like, oh, we're gonna have the Rooney Rule and all that, but it's like you can see guys who are a lot less qualified. Obviously there are guys who are getting hired, but just for example, with the Texans interviewing Josh McCown for their head coach, I'm like, Josh McCown is cool, journeyman guy, great, but what coaching experience are you bringing here? That's a little ridiculous to me. And obviously, there's the talks with Eric Bieniemy with the Chiefs. He could probably get a lot of jobs, right? Just I wonder if he sees any of these as a good fit. Because if you could have all this experience and you could hold your own weight and you could go where you want, right? But if you're looking at a spot and it doesn't look that appetizing to you, are you going to take it just because it's a head spot? I wouldn't. You want to find the spot that's right. So I understand. I'm intrigued by this. I'm wondering how much actual ground this breaks and how much of a difference it actually makes.
It'd be interesting to know what the process or what exactly the committee would be doing in light of the hiring, or where they'd be involved. Yeah. So I'm sure more details will arise. And now we'll go ahead and move on to the Mariners.
So we continue our Mariners spring training coverage over the past, 6 games over the past week that took place, one of them happening as we were recording last week. So we'll look into it. March 21st at the Arizona Diamondbacks, losing that game 1-9. Player of the game would be third baseman Abraham Toro, going 2 for 3 with an RBI. On the 22nd versus Chicago Cubs, tying that game 5-5. Player of the game being first baseman Mike Ford, going 1 for 1 with a run and 2 RBIs. It's interesting with spring training because you can tie games. There are also situations where you can play to 7 innings and both managers be like, hey, do you want to keep playing this game or you think we're done? No, we're done. It's kind of funny to know that's spring training. We're okay not continuing this game.
Leniency.
So that tie against the Cubs on the 22nd. So we'll go back here to finish up this of 3 of 6. March 24th at the Cleveland Guardians, winning that game 3-2. Player of the game, newly signed left fielder Billy Hamilton, going 1 for 1 with 2 RBIs. Head over to our next 3. March 25th versus Chicago White Sox, winning that game 3-0. Player of the game, right fielder Mitch Haniger, going 1 for 3 with 3 RBIs. March 26th at the Milwaukee Brewers, another 5-5 tie in this one. Player of the game would be catcher Tom Murphy, going 1 for 2 with 1 run, 2 RBIs, and a walk. March 27th at the Oakland Athletics, winning that game 7-1. Player of the game, third baseman Eugenio Suarez, going 1 for 3 with 1 run and 2 RBIs. So a decent week. I mean, it's always kind of weird when you see 2 ties on the recaps, especially when it's not games that can actually get tied. Other sports where they actually do ties, right? So we head over to our players of the week. Interesting here to see our notes. I had Abraham Toro. Toro's had a pretty solid spring training so far in 14 at bats. He's got a 571 average a .647 on base percentage, a .714 slugging percentage, a 1.361 on base plus slugging, 1 walk, 10 total bases, an RBI, a triple, and 8 hits. Toro, I mean, I remember the trade for Toro at the deadline for Kendall Graveman and all the outrage that happened. And it made sense to me at the time because Kendall Graveman was going to be a free agent at the end of the year. You had no idea if he was going to re-sign, and you wanted to get some value out of him, right? So like a logical general manager, you trade for a guy, you get some value out of him.
Mhm.
And you get a guy that's young and talented. And in his first 3 games, he hits like 3 home runs. And you're like, what the hell? And everyone was still mad at it. I know now that obviously that's kind of simmered down, but he's got a lot of talent. He might push for that third baseman spot. I don't know that for sure. But Toro's definitely going to be a guy that's going to make an impact this year. And I'm excited to see it. I just remember the general discourse when that happened. Even I was in the ballpark right when that trade got announced, like a few hours before the game. And you could hear like the ushers talking about it. Oh, Graveman just got traded. And it was like, oh boy. And that obviously there's a lot of discourse about that. Belle, do you care to discuss your...
So I'm going to agree with you this week, but I'm also going to mention what I wrote on my notes here because I just have a bunch of sad, disappointed faces. Last week on my player of the week, not everyone was happy with my choice of Joe Rizzo. So this week, I'm going to ask you guys to chime in the comments and tell me who you think the player of the week was. And
Sure,
I
that's
will do my homework moving forward, and you'll see more of these from me in the weeks coming.
It's perfect time for it because spring training and baseball is it's approaching. It's not right on the doorstep, but we got what, two weeks?
Mhm.
And I think next week we'll have to look at opening day roster just to see where we think things might stack up, because I know that there are spots that are kind of set into place, but also especially with Mariners fans, there's a couple positions that aren't exactly filled to their liking. So we'll take a look at that.
Okay.
Next week we head over to injury news, which again, every time we look at injury news, it's upsetting, I guess, in a way. We head over to March 26th, Evan White was diagnosed with a sports hernia. The first baseman will undergo surgery as soon as possible. From what I understand, sports hernia, the turnaround time for that is 6 to 12 weeks. It's a tough break for Evan White. I was a fan of Evan White. He won the Gold Glove in 2020 and really showed out. Just had to kind of fix his swing, get some more at-bats in there, and got injured. Well, just really couldn't put it together fully in 2021. I got injured. And then Ty France wins that first baseman spot and really kind of shows out in doing so. Should have been at least a finalist for the Gold Glove Award. It's a tough situation because you had a spot that you might have considered your own, right? Heading into 2021, you get injured, and then this other guy comes out and he shows up. It's like something out of a movie, right? Some guy comes in and takes your spot.
Just waiting.
Yeah. And now it's tough because I know he was considered potential trade bait last year. You can't really trade him right now because he's damaged goods. So it's a tough situation because I know at least this year it would have been probably nice to get him some time in AAA.
Mm-hmm.
Get him to really fix that swing, get his legs under him, and because the defensive side of it's there. It's just about getting a swing down. Now you've got another setback, so it's really tough to look at this, and I don't know. It's tough to be Evan White right now. So that's difficult to look at, and hoping for the best and a quickest recovery possible as he deals with that sports hernia. We head over to team news. We got a bunch of roster move kind of things as the Mariners look to whittle down their spring training roster. On the 22nd, the team optioned Joey Gerber, right-handed pitcher, down to AAA Tacoma. Optioned AA right-handed pitcher Juan Then down to AA Arkansas. Reassigned right-handed pitcher Travis Kuhn, infielders Jose Caballero, infielder Noel V. Marte, outfielder Zach DeLoach, all down to minor league camp. And then signing right-handed pitcher Sal Romano to a minor league deal with an invite to major league camp. On the 23rd, which is the most interesting signing of the week, the team signed relief pitcher Sergio Romo to a 1-year, $2 million contract. Over his 14 MLB seasons, he's appeared in 798 games, with winning 3 World Series rings and being named a All-Star in 2013. this is an interesting signing. He appeared, I mean, he's kind of getting up there in age, but he's appeared in 60 games last year with the Athletics. So, I mean, he's still got some gas in him. And I'm sure this was definitely a move in response to the loss of Casey Sadler last week due to injury. So I'm intrigued. It was kind of fun reading about it because I guess like 5 minutes into him being in the clubhouse, players were already talking to him, about just trying to talk to him just because he's a veteran. I mean, 14 years, man, that's a lot.
A lot of knowledge to share.
So I think it's good, and especially for a team that's really, really hoping to make the playoffs this year, having that veteran presence and that knowledge, like you said, should really be able to help in that bullpen. And the Mariners bullpen was such a big piece pitching wise that the team relied on last season. So hoping that they can do the same this year. Maybe not the same circumstances, but Romo's going to have a big impact, I think, this upcoming season. March 24th, it was announced that Mariners legend Ichiro Suzuki will throw out the first pitch on opening day, April 15th. This coming with the news that Ichiro weekend, August 17th through 19th, I believe it is, Ichiro will have his, I don't think it's confirmed yet, but it's highly likely that this happens, that his number will be retired. He's being elected into the Mariners Hall of Fame, but I feel like that's kind of it's a given at this point. And especially with the statues that the Mariners have outside T-Mobile Park, with Griffey being behind home plate, Edgar Martinez going down the first baseline, I feel like to me, right, if we're going to have a third statue, because it kind of feels awkward to have one like this and not have a third one, Ichiro would be the perfect candidate to have a statue on the other side, and I think it would make a lot of sense.
And if you don't have your tickets for Ichiro weekend, you probably should be quick on that because opening night is completely sold out the last time I checked, which was 2 days ago. So if you do want to be part of that, definitely look into getting your tickets now. Yeah,
that's a good point out, because if you're going to wait till the week of or even the month of, that's probably those will probably be gone. I know that anytime anything Ichiro related happened while I've been working with the ballpark, there's a lot of people there, a lot of Ichiro fans. It's just a big deal. So yes, I would get on that. I know it's not till August, but still safer to get it now, and maybe by then we're, chugging along, near the top of the division. It might already be a competitive team. So that might be a higher ticket regardless. So March 26th, the team assigned 3 to minor league camp, right-handed pitcher Devin Sweet, left-handed pitcher Roenis Elias, and catcher Jake Anchia. On the 27th, to wrap up our roster moves, infielder Kevin Padlow was optioned to AAA Tacoma. Alberto Rodriguez, an outfielder, was optioned to High A Everett, and 5 players were optioned to minor league camp. Right-handed pitcher Asher Wojciechowski, catcher Josh Morgan, outfielders Forrest Wall and Marcus Wilson, and infielder/outfielder Sam Haggerty. So getting all that and moving along to the team record. The team sits at a 4-3 record, which I can't even put ties there because we don't even spring training is weird. Yeah. Again, we have a heavy slate for you of upcoming games. We're going to split it into 2 because there's 7 total games this upcoming week. There's already going on right now. The team is playing the Texas Rangers. It's tied. The second inning just ended, so tied at 0. We will look at the rest. March 29th versus the Kansas City Royals at 1:10. March 30th at the Chicago Cubs at 1:05. March 31st versus the Cleveland Guardians at 6:40. April 1st at the Colorado Rockies at 6:40 as we move along to the second set here. April 2nd versus the Milwaukee Brewers at 6:40, and April 3rd at the Kansas City Royals at 3:05. So that is your slate of spring training in the Mariners, and we will move over to a couple tidbits with the Storm.
Yeah, not too much going on with the Storm yet, but they will be hosting the LA Sparks in a preseason game on April 23rd at 6 p.m. at Climate Pledge Arena. So if you want to catch a game before we get into the season, make sure to be there. On the 25th, Ezzy Magbagor, see, I knew I was going to do that, was named the WNBL's Youth Player of the Year. This is her 3rd time winning the award. She averaged 16.1 points and 7.5 rebounds. So congratulations to Ezzy.
I think it's important that we touch on this because, winning that award is great, but also with what we've talked about with the Storm roster, right? It's going to be really key that we get, improvements and growth from a player like Ezzy when you didn't sign a Tina Charles, right? Yeah. Or just make a real out of the other, like Stephanie Dolson. Emma Messiman. There were a lot of candidates out there, and I don't know if it was a cap situation or just it wasn't in the plans to not sign someone, but also it's just having her role, just really seeing a breakout was really important, because you really hit it on the head when you said it, but not putting too much pressure on your big three is huge. It's huge. And so to go back to the April 23rd game against the Sparks, this is Sue Bird's last season. So if you have any idea who Sue Bird is, or you want to be, you get on this train while it's leaving the station effectively.
Yeah.
Any chance, I would take care of it now and get your tickets out of the way. Single game tickets actually went on sale today, so I would get on top of that. Maybe I think on the Storm segment, we'll link that in the description just so that's available. I know whenever things are right in front of me, it makes it easier. So, but also some league notes. So we'll get back to that.
Yes. On March 23rd, it was reported that the U.S. gained temporary access to Brittany Griner. An official from the U.S. Embassy in Russia recently checked on this WNBA star, and she said that she's in good condition. Every time I read these, it's always so funny to me because I just don't understand what good condition can mean. Hopefully it means that mentally she's in a state of mind where she's thinking positive and hoping that this ends soon.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it last week with this idea that just kind of figuring out more details, right? What is the United States actually doing? There's some case of that, but I want to know, is there a plan in place, or are we working on trials? I want to know more details about this, because again, you could talk if it was some man from some other some NBA star was in Russia.
Jello Ball.
I feel like
that's that whole situation. He wasn't detained for very long.
Yeah. So I would want to hope to hear more about that and get her back as soon as possible, preferably before May. So.
Yeah. Yes, and moving on to some more uplifting news here. Elena Del Don is going to assist Joe Biden. The Mystics superstar will be the co-chair of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition after Herschel Walker was asked to step down. So asked to step down and knew that we were bringing Elena Del Don right in to fill that role. So congrats to her. And I think that about covers our WNBA section. So let's go ahead and move on to the Sounders here.
So we don't have anything directly Sounders related because we're on international break. I can tell you that the Sounders, effectively their development team, the Tacoma Defiance, won 4-0 just yesterday against the Real Monarchs, the Real Salt Lake affiliate. So that was good to see. Dylan Tevez, UW product, who signed a homegrown contract, had a goal and an assist. Alfonso Ocampo Chavez had 2 goals. So your youth team is doing well to start the season. They're playing down in Starfire Sports, so they're not playing in Tacoma despite their name. But yes, so that continues. The Sounders still sit at a 1-win, 1-draw, 2-loss record in MLS play, but they've got 2 different competitions coming up this upcoming week, so we can finally get back to it. Had this weird sort of bye week. April 2nd at Minnesota United FC. That's a 5 o'clock start. You're playing Minnesota, a team you played in the Western Conference Final a few years ago. In Minnesota, I know they've got a lot of talent, so that'll be another test. And then April 6th versus New York City FC at a 7 o'clock start. That is at Lumen Field. That is leg 1 of the CONCACAF Champions League semifinal. That's big because, leg 1, you want to hopefully come out, score a lot, and give yourself some bit of a pillow, a cushion for leg 2, like you did against Club Leon, where you came out, scored 3 goals, get yourself. I would rather, give yourself a big lead and then have to be able to lay on it than, come from behind. In New York City FC, it's not going to be any easy task. Obviously, they've gotten to the semifinal level as well, and they won MLS Cup last season. So you're playing the defending champs in pursuit of another trophy. So it's going to be a big week next week, playing Minnesota, who's a good team in MLS play, and then playing New York, the defending champs, in another trophy competition. So heading over to our Seattle Kraken here, coming off of a very, very busy NHL trade deadline that we were having to update right up to the minute, right? Played 2 games over the past week, playing 1 tonight. March 22nd at the Arizona Coyotes, winning that one 4-2. Player of the game, defenseman Carson Soucy, had 2 goals, 2 points, a 2+- and 8 shots on goal. With those goals, he sets a new career high for goals scored in a season with 9 now, so that's good to see. Susi was a guy that was actually considered to be a potential trade piece at the deadline. I know a lot of teams were calling about him, and the team decided to not move on. So that's good. I think it's been kind of a tough situation with some of those guys, with Giordano, who's a guy that's 38 and your team captain. There's going to be pressure to get him minutes, right? So other guys might feel the brunt of that to get shaved out of the equation. So good to see that Susi had a good game there down in Arizona. And then March 26th, in the first of 2 games down in LA, March 26th at the Kings, losing that game 2-4, played the game for Daniel Sprong, scoring a goal, a point, a 1+- and 2 shots on goal. It was his second game with a goal, back-to-back, the 5th player in franchise history to score in his team debut, which is kind of funny. And he's shown he's got a great shot. He's shown great speed. So it's picking up a guy that really hadn't shown too much prior to, being acquired, really.
Yeah.
He's kind of struggled. And speaking about struggling, as we head to team news, March 21st, the team acquired forward Victor Rask from the Minnesota Wild. This was shortly after we had wrapped up recording, actually. We might have got a note in there, but I think this was right as we were editing the episode. So the team acquires Victor Rask from the Minnesota Wild. Rask has only played he dealt with some injury things since 2019. The Wild receive future considerations. So what that means, maybe draft picks are in play, who knows. The Wild will retain half of Rask's contract, and he will report immediately to the Kraken's AHL affiliate, the Charlotte Checkers, following the trade. So I don't know. I'm interested to see the future considerations part, because it's like in baseball with a player to be named later, right? It's like I kind of want to know who else is heading over there, because it could be important. I don't think it's going to be a player. I think it just might be some amount of draft picks or a draft pick or even money, And then on the 24th, the team recalled Victor Rask from AHL. So you can see there we've already got him in. He was in that game against the Kings, got him some action there. So that being said, not as much news as we had to go into like 7 different trades last week. The Kraken record now sits at 20 wins, 39 losses, and 6 overtime losses. So if you take that, 20 times 2 is 40. 6 times 1, you get the 46 points. It's always fun to look at how the point system works in NHL. Looking ahead, the Kraken play 4 different games. They play that second one against the Kings tonight at 7:30 down at Crypto Arena. It's not the Staples Center anymore.
I know.
Really bizarre.
What a shame.
And then coming home to play 2 games against Vegas, the first on March 30th at 7:00, and then April 1st against Vegas again at 7:00. Then finishing up the week, April 3rd versus the Dallas Stars at 6. We head over to our OL Reign here, who played the second game of their Challenge Cup down in sunny LA at Titan Stadium, playing the Angel City FC, one of the 2 expansion teams, on the 26th, winning that game in stunning fashion, 3-1. Player of the game would be midfielder Angelina Constantino with a goal and assist, and only on 1 shot. This was an interesting game to me just because anytime you play an expansion team, it's fun to look at, and it's funny thinking about that because of who we just talked about. But I was a little bit worried about Angel City just because, you're an expansion team, and especially with a league that's kind of small, like the NWSL, you probably are going to be able to get some really talented players. The Reign came out and scored 3 goals, 3 unanswered to begin the game.
Without Megan Rapinoe or Alyssa Melanson.
Yeah, and it's like, I have my doubts. I had my doubts a little bit because last season, granted that this was in April and May, the team had some big loans from your parent club, Olympique Lyon, and you're thinking, hey, we haven't seen any of that. Are we going to get some of those players back? But also, there's a lot of talent on this roster, and this is a team that's still chasing an NWSL title, has not won that in its history. So I had my doubts. I worry a lot anyway, but to come out and really just kind of stick it to Angel City, that was really good to see. And your goalkeeper, Valentilus Joyce, who I had some doubts about, really had a great game. That 1 goal is kind of it was a tough one to give up, but she had a really good game outside of that. So I'm just happy to have the Reign back. It's just good to have soccer back. As Bel mentioned, injury-related news, the day before the match, it was announced that Megan Rapinoe and Alyssa Melanson were dealing injuries. I do have a report about Rapinoe. It's just something was cleaned up with the calf, and she's rehabbing of sorts and just they don't want to rush it, is from what I understand, just kind of getting back into the motions. And it's Challenge Cup, so she probably wouldn't have played that much anyway. So just kind of building her back and getting her back into,
Can we expect to see her back in on the 2nd, or do you think they're going to continue to rehab that? Okay.
Probably later, maybe next week.
Okay.
I don't think they're
going to play it safe.
The way they talked about it doesn't sound like she's close to returning. So
okay.
We'll work on that. They always have press conferences, so I'll keep an eye on that. But at the moment, I think they'll probably ease her back into things.
Yeah.
So, as you mentioned, April 2nd, with their 1 win and 1 draw record, the team sits at first in the Western Division. Looking ahead, they will play the team that is second in the Western Division on the 2nd. The Portland Thorns at 7 o'clock. That is down in Portland at Providence Park. So all of these games matter just because you're playing for a cup. I know it's kind of like a preseason trophy at this point, and I know that's how some teams look at it. But anytime you can win hardware, I don't see why not, right?
Right.
So with that being said, talking about winning hardware, over the past week, the Seawolves played the only other team in Major League Rugby to win the MLR title, with Seattle winning the first 2020 season. No, the season ends early. And then 2021, LA wins it. You play LA over the past week. Didn't end in the way you'd like. Seattle would lose that game 12-31. It was kind of what we've seen from Seattle kind of all season. Even in their 3-0 start, the Seawolves had turnover issues, and just in this game they looked like they were trying to get too fancy, right? If you're playing the defending champs, a team that is 3-3, right? So they're kind of at where you were at. You don't want to just get back to basics. You've got a lot of talent on this roster. You've got a group some guys that are still with the team from those championship rosters. Why get too fancy? There are a lot of times where Seattle had good possessions. They were moving the ball down the field, getting in near the try line, and then an unnecessary kick or a bad kick pass would just sail out of bounds. It's like you just wasted a perfectly good possession and a kick that you rushed, right? Or turnovers. There was one right in front of me where Seattle was coming down to punch it in, and the ball squirts out, goes out of bounds. It's just turnovers have been such a big issue for this team, and just looked overall sloppy. The sloppy play cannot happen, especially when you're playing the defending champs. It's maybe against Dallas, right? We talked about last week. You're playing an expansion team that's 0-6. You might have some leeway to be able to
try some new things.
Yeah, it's like a tune-up game, not against the defending champs. And now you're sitting at 4-4. You're heading into your bye week. You take some time off, I guess, but also you got to look at yourselves and say, hey, you're at 3rd in the Western Conference right now, so you're not a far shot out of it. You're only 2 points outside of 2nd. Got to figure it out, and if you want to, get back to the level that you've been at, really look at yourself and say, hey, we got to tighten some things up, So I'm hoping that can happen, because I know that you're on the doorstep, but you have to be able to tighten that one bolt that's kind of loose.
Yeah. And it looks like the loss was the team as a whole there, because you didn't even have a player of the game this week.
No. The only thing I guess that's positive from that game was that wing player Martin Iacefo had to leave right after halftime because his wife went into labor. And from what I understand, that went all good. So congratulations. I believe it's Danny and Martin on the birth of their child. So a little bit, some good news from that. We have some other good news. We have a signing and a Player of the Week honor. On the 23rd, it was announced that team captain Reichert Hadding was named the U.S. MLR Player of the Week for his performance against Dallas, recording 1 try, 16 ball carries, traveling 190 meters, and recording 10 tackles. On the 25th, the team signed Ty ENOSA through the 2022 season as a utility back that used to play for the San Diego Legion back in 2019 and has played on the USA 7 team. So interesting to note with the players that Seattle signed since we've been covering the team, right? A lot of national team representation. And that's why it frustrates me. You look at this team in the sloppy play, right? You've got a lot of talent, a lot of veteran presence. And Captain Reichert is still playing outstanding rugby. and it's these sloppy plays continue to happen. So I really don't think Seattle's that far off. I really don't. But just like with other teams we've talked about, if the adjustments aren't made, it doesn't matter, right? If it's broken, you have to fix it. It's not like there's nothing broken. You can leave it alone. You got to fix it, So I'm hoping for that. But the Seawolves get a week off. When we come back to you next week, looking ahead, it was April 9th at the New England Free Jacks at 1:30. New England is 6-1, and that's this week. So they can improve that and go 7-1. They are leading the Eastern Conference, so it's not going to be an easy challenge.
Not at all.
So remember what I've just said about improving, and adjusting. You got to do that quick.
And they have a week to do it. So hopefully
so you might get embarrassed. If you don't. So that is our week in Seattle sports. We've got some Seahawks stuff that's kind of murmurs. The Mariners are in full swing spring training. The Storm. Some internal stuff, but also an announcement about preseason. The Kraken is kind of a mixed bag, as it's been always. As it's been all season. The Sounders, a big upcoming week. The Reign, really a kind of almost a statement win, I'd say. Coming up, another big week against Portland. Any week against Portland's a big week, and then the Seawolves, kind of a disappointing week. So, do you have any overbearing thoughts on anything? Just kind of happy that we didn't have to go through what we've had to cover the last few weeks.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's been a very robust amount of news in the last few weeks. And so it was kind of nice to just be able to talk about some games for a change and how teams are doing, but also kind of in shock that we're going into April now.
It is pretty wild to think about, because for a while I've looked at like the games on April 2nd and 3rd, like, oh, it's a bit out. Nah, that's this week. So with that being said, we will see you on, what is that? I don't even remember.
The
4th. We will see you on April 4th for next week's version of Circling Shell Sports on Converge. Until then, Bel Garcia, Charles Hammaker, we will see you next week. Do your best to make today a great day.